The England squad for the Six Nations 2024 is in then. What do you make of Steve Borthwick's selections? What do you think of the new faces? Who do you think he should have picked that he hasn't, or is lucky to be in there? And here's a question for you. What do you read into this squad in terms of how England are going to play in the Six Nations? Are they going to evolve the style of rugby, which admittedly got them very close to a World Cup final, but which a lot of England fans were a little bit frustrated with? Do you think Steve Borthwick's side are going to roll the dice a little bit more? I've got my doubts on that particular point, but I will talk about that. I'll give you my thoughts on what I think the team will be that line up in England's first game in a couple of weekends' time. And let's go through each part of the squad position by position. But starting with the first announcement Steve Borthwick made, Jamie George is his new captain. With Owen Farrell stepping back from international rugby for the foreseeable, maybe forever, we'll wait and see on that. But Jamie George, his Saracens teammate, is skipper. Steve Borthwick described him as quietly influential and with an excellent tactical understanding. He did actually captain the British and Irish Lions, one of the midweek teams. So he's got leadership experience. I would say this about Jamie George as well. He is much more natural as an open communicator with the media. And I think with the fact that Steve Borthwick is a very straight-laced kind of bloke and Owen Farrell was the same, that's just their personality type. I'm not criticising it, but I think it will be a little bit of a breath of fresh air that Jamie George will be at ease with the media. And that could warm the England team to the public and to the media a little bit more than maybe they have done in recent years. So I'm happy with that selection. I prefer a captain to be in the forward pack. And Jamie George is, well, clearly he's the outstanding choice at hooker, although he has got new competition for his jersey, or returning competition for his jersey. 7 uncapped players in this squad. Let's go through position by position. And on my previous video, I did give a prediction about what I thought the squad would be. I did that on Monday morning. I wasn't far off, I've got to say. In the loosehead prop, I said Ellis Genge, I said Beno Urbano, and I thought Joe Marler was injured. A bicep injury I thought was going to keep him out. Great news that he's fit. So I picked Finn Baxter, thinking Joe Marler wouldn't be available. But I'll say this about Joe Marler. He is England's best loosehead prop. And I honestly think there is an argument that he is the best loosehead prop in world rugby. Big statement, I know. Stephen Kitsoff. Fans might have something to say about that. I think Joe Marler would get into a South Africa squad. I can't... Oxenchae obviously would be the best loosehead prop in the world. What am I talking about? But anyway, I think Joe Marler would get into a South Africa squad, and I can't give him any higher praise than that. So delighted, absolutely delighted that he is fit and well. As for hooker, Jamie George, the skipper, Theo Dan is Saracens understudy and England understudy as well. Luke Cowan-Dickie back in the fold. I did wonder, with all the talk surrounding Luke Cowan-Dickie maybe going back to France, or not going back to France, going to France at the end of this season, I did wonder whether Steve Borthwick might look elsewhere, which is why I suggested Curtis Langdon of Northampton, but I'm more than happy with Luke Cowan-Dickie. I think he will go straight onto the bench, and Theo Dan will keep learning his trade. In a tight head prop, exactly as I predicted, as a lot of people predicted, no Kyle Sinclair. This is a bit of a... Well, he's moving to France next season, and, well, it's a change, isn't it? I think the World Cup showed up the fact that a lot of the things that Kyle Sinclair does better than any other tight head prop, soft handling, they're nice to haves, but you have to be able to do the bread and butter basics. I'm really hoping that Joe Hayes can step up and take over the mantle as a scrummager from Dan Cole. Will Stewart, who blows a bit hot and cold, he's got to put consistent performances together. But based on what was available, don't think it's as good as other nations, but it's the best that we can pick. Second row, I got this on the money as well. Obviously, Nick Ezekwe is in there, and that's because, as I'll come on to the injured players, George Martin is in a group that are rehabbing. You would imagine that, well, it would be Nick Ezekwe or Alex Coles will lose their spot to George Martin if he were fit. We'll wait and see on that, but well done to Alex Coles, and good effort, Nick Ezekwe, getting back in the squad. As for the back row, this is where some of the biggest surprises were. I was correct on Ethan Roots and Tom Pearson and Sam Underhill and Ben Curry and Ben Earl. I did not see Chandler Cunningham South. You can't even get his whole name on the page. It's that long. You get a great score for that name in Scrabble. Yeah, I didn't see that as a selection. And Alex Dombrandt, I'm really pleased for him. He has been playing well. I just thought that it might be Alfie Barbery's time. What is it that Steve Borthwick doesn't see in Alfie Barbery that lots of other England fans do see? What do you think of that? No doubting Alex Dombrandt is an outstanding player. I'm disappointed not to see Barbery. Is that because he's been cited and he's expecting to be suspended? Will he come in at a later date? We'll wait and see. Chandler Cunningham South was at London Irish last year. England under 20s in the World Championship last year. That's a massive rise for him. Now he's been doing a good job at Harlequins. He can play second row. He can play blindside flanker. He can play number 8. I think that is why he's in. Just the versatility that he brings. And I'm trying to read into what that means about how Steve Borthwick's going to play. I'll get onto that in a minute. But just to summarise the pack, there is the England pack for the upcoming Six Nations Championship. I'm pretty happy with that. I mean, I'd like there to be slightly stronger depth at tight head prop. But on the whole, yeah, decent. As for the backs, exactly as I predicted, Danny Kerr is still in the mix, and I'm delighted about that. There are 2 scrum halves, Rafi Quirk and Jack Van Portvliet, who are on the rehab list, and great reward for Ben Spencer and his form at Bath. He's been excellent. As expected, Finn Smith taking Owen Farrell's spot, fly half, no surprises there. Centre, now this was a surprise. I went for Fraser Dingwall, Ollie Lawrence, Henry Slade and Tommy Freeman. Now, we'll come on to Tommy Freeman in a second, but the fact that Oscar Beard of Harlequins has been selected, who is primarily an outside centre, can play a bit on the wing as well, the fact that he is in the squad, that says to me Tommy Freeman is going to be treated as an out-and-out winger. I mean, what a rise for Oscar Beard. He's definitely got raw potential, no question about that. I think he's far from the finished article, so I think he will be there to learn from the other 3 and to have a look at. But who knows? Maybe he'll get thrown in at the deep end. We will see. As for the wings, and as I say, I've shifted Tommy Freeman to be a winger, and only one man out of that stable of wingers that was at the Rugby World Cup, and that's Elliot Daly, with Emmanuel Faye-Waboso getting his spot as expected, Tommy Freeman back in, and Tom Roebuck ahead of Joe Thokanasiga, who Joe Thokanasiga has been playing brilliantly for Bath. Adam Radwan up at Newcastle would be another shout, but Tom Roebuck of Sale Sharks has got in with a shout. How much do you think that is down to the fact that he is Scotland eligible, and so Steve Borthwick's just trying to land grab him and not let him go to Scotland, in the same way that England have selected Emmanuel Faye-Waboso after only 15 senior games for Exeter Chiefs? It's quite something, isn't it? I wonder how much is it down to the fact that he's eligible for Wales and he's eligible for Scotland. I wonder. Or, and here's another thought, and again, get stuck in the comments down below. And by the way, if you get value out of the channel, if you enjoy the rugby content, please consider hitting subscribe. I would love it if you would. Help a brother out. So Tom Roebuck, the other element of this could mean this tells you exactly how Steve Borthwick is going to play. And the way that England are going to play is not going to be radically different from what Steve Borthwick has been doing so far. Because Tom Roebuck, when you look at the other options, Adam Radwan, we know what his superpower is: electric pace, footwork, attacking dynamo. When you think about Joe Thokanasiga, his superpower is with the ball, massive body, really fast, potent attacker. Tom Roebuck's superpower, he's a good all-rounder, good rugby player. I don't want to do him down, but what is noticeable every time I watch Tom Roebuck, he works his nuts off. He chases kicks all day long, in the way that Johnny May was always like a chase kicks like a dog running after a ball. Tom Roebuck's got that about him. So I wonder if that means, if that is an indicator, Steve Borthwick is very much going to go with a structured, kicking-oriented game. I think that is probably where England are at. As for fullbacks, great to see George Furbank getting a reward for his form at Northampton Saints. He's been absolutely brilliant. I had my doubts about George Furbank. He's played for England before, didn't really look at home. He looks to have matured a lot. And if you were thinking about a World Cup squad, when there's fewer numbers, the fact he can slot in at 10 and does that second distributor role, England can play a very different way with George Furbank at fullback than they can with Freddie Stewart at fullback. And bearing in mind Steve Borthwick's been trying Marcus Smith at fullback, I think that means that maybe he wants to experiment with having a second playmaker in the backfield in the way that France do and New Zealand do and other countries besides. So that could be an indicator that Steve Borthwick is trying to evolve the way England play, contrary to what I was just talking about. We'll see on that front. As for the back line overall, that's what it looks like. And, I mean, some fresh blood. Oscar Beard, the biggest surprise. Tom Roebuck and Emmanuel Faye-Waboso. Other than that, and Finn Smith, obviously, but other than that, kind of as expected. Delighted that Henry Slade is back in. And how will the England team look, though? When they line up for that first game in the Six Nations, tell me in the comments, what do you think England's starting 15 or 23-man squad will be? Because, I should have mentioned the players that are on injury rehab at the moment. George Martin in the pack, and then 4 backs. Manu Tuolangi, Anthony Watson, Rafi Quirk and Jack Van Poortvliet. So what does that England team look like? If you were picking a 23-man squad, what would it be? I've had a go. And there it is. Joe Marler starting for me, no question. Absolutely one of the best loosehead props in the world. Jamie George, the captain. Dan Cole to start. We saw at the Rugby World Cup just how important a good scrum is. So Marler and Cole again, just like they did with South Africa. They can get England parity at least, if not be dominant against some nations. Itoje, with no George Martin, is it Alex Coles that gets the start at lock and Ollie Chesham on the blind side? I think that will probably be the way that Steve Borthwick goes. I could equally see Ollie Chesham being in the second row and Ethan Roots being on the blindside flank. I could absolutely see that. But Underhill and Earl, those are the two that I would imagine would complete the back row. So I think that 5 and 6 are the main question marks for that England squad. What would you go with? And as you see on the bench, Genge, Cowan, Dickie Hayes, Ezekwe and Pearson. I think that could well be Chandler Cunningham South. I'll come to the replacements in just a minute. But the back line, I think the fact that Oscar Beard is there as a 13 says to me Ollie Lawrence is going to be primarily a 12. So, and Henry Slade's been playing that well and has got, over 50 caps to his name. I think he's got a very, very strong case to be starting outside centre. Elliot Daly and Tommy Freeman, 2 big and very, very talented wingers there who, I think their main job is going to be chasing kicks. And because of that, because of Tom Roebuck's selection in the wingers, that's made me flip. The other day I was thinking Marcus Smith would be starting, and maybe he will, but it has made me flip to think that George Ford may be starting and he will be going for that more kicking-oriented game and maybe change things on 50, 60 minutes with Marcus Smith and Danny Kerr coming onto the field. As for the replacements, well, if you just go through and think, if someone gets injured, what do you do? If the fullback goes off injured, Marcus Smith can come in, because you'll notice I've gone for Fraser Dingwall on the bench. If Freddie Stewart goes off, Marcus Smith could come on at 15. If Tommy Freeman or Elliot Daly go off, then Marcus Smith could come on at 15 and Freddie Stewart could go onto the wing. If the 13 goes off, then, obviously you've got Elliot Daly could slot in there, Tommy Freeman could slot in there, Ollie Lawrence could get shunted out to 13, his more natural position. The one position I think England are struggling to replace if there's an injury is inside centre, which is why I think that Fraser Dingwall will absolutely be in the matchday squad. I don't know how else you accommodate, I don't know how else you replace an inside centre if someone were to go off injured. So that's why I've got Fraser Dingwall in the 23 shirt. I may be completely wrong on that, but that's my logic. As for the pack, as I've mentioned, if the only issue with Tom Pearson being the player on the bench, what happens if Ben Earl at number 8 gets injured? Tom Pearson can slot in there, but he's not really a natural number 8. Maybe it will be Alex Dombrandt. And if you think about that, Dombrandt, Kerr, Smith, all coming off the bench together, the Harlequins 8, 9, 10 for club and country, I think there's a really strong argument that that Harlequins axis of 8, 9, 10 could well be, on 50, 60 minutes, a brilliant weapon for England to put on. That's my thoughts anyway. Tell me what you think. Let me know. Get stuck in the comments down below. I'm pretty happy with that. And you know what? Bearing in mind the day that Wales fans had yesterday, you can only, again, feel very comfortable with the depth and the amount of resources that England have. I think that England have and do underachieve as a consequence, and we need to go into the Six Nations tournament and try and win it. I'm okay with the style of play if we win Test matches. There are other England fans who want to see us play a much more expansive style of rugby and would be happy to lose. It's horses for courses on that front. I'd love to know which side of the fence you're on in that sense. Get stuck in the comments, hit subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and I'll see you on the next video. The Six Nations is days away now.